In this section of the program, we want to show you some basic tactics and techniques that you can use to ward off an assault and get yourself away from there, get yourself to safety, because that's the objective. We're going to primarily concentrate on defensive maneuvers. It's blocks, warding off, that kind of thing. But we are also going to show you a couple of simple strikes that you can incorporate into your defensive maneuvers if you need to. If striking somebody is both appropriate and justified, and what you need to do at that point in order to get yourself to safety. Good positional awareness is probably the first thing you want to be thinking about when you're working on a patient that you have any suspicions about at all. Whether it's the patient you are a little hinky about or it's the environment, don't stand directly in front of the patient, because if you do, clearly they can just kick you like that if they are so inclined. Better to be off to the side, and if you actually have to start working on this patient, to come down on the side, so now you've got some ability to defend yourself. Another thing to be aware of is what's called the interview stance or the ready stance. If you think you might need to defend yourself in a minute, you're still assessing the situation, don't just stand there like this, looking around. Stand upright, have your weight evenly distributed between your feet, be a little bit up on the balls of your feet, and have your hands somewhere here in front of you. This is what police officers are taught, and this is the way police officers interact with subjects on the street that they don't know their intentions about. The hands are up here, and you can be talking with your hands, which is a good way to mask the fact that you've got your hands in front of you, ready to defend yourself if you need to. And if you're in this balanced kind of posture, and you start to get some kind of reaction from your patient that could potentially be dangerous, he stands up and starts to come after you or something, this is a good place to be. You're balanced, you're ready to move, your hands are up in front of you, you can say things like, "Sir, please sit down." This is what's sometimes called the athletic stance. If you ever played any sport in high school or college, this is a stance that's very familiar to you. It's almost like a batter's stance. It's what a football player does. It's the way you get ready to run, and it's what's called the ready stance or the interview stance in public safety. If your patient or a bystander decides to assault you by coming at you, you're going to want to be able to initially block that assault. There's two basic kinds of blocks. There's what we call a shield block and a pat block or a deflecting block. A shield block, for instance, if Mark goes to punch me, is just what it sounds like. Keep that there, Mark. I'm putting this up as a shield so this doesn't hit me. If Mark was coming down low to grab me around the waist, it would look like that. I'm putting a shield down between his motion and me. On the other hand, a deflecting block or a pat block looks more like this. Say he goes to punch me, I'm deflecting what he's coming in with. Again, give me that same one, Mark. I'm deflecting it. It's not so much that I'm putting a shield up, it's that I'm deflecting the force. Now, if you've studied any martial arts or watched some martial arts, you've probably seen certain kinds of what we call shield blocks that look like this or like this. And we have a somewhat more efficient way to do that we're going to show you. But the problem with doing something like this, for instance, if I was trying to block Mark's punch, is that I'm using my small deltoid muscle here to try to raise my arm and counteract his force. And that's a pretty small muscle. If I'm coming down like this or this way, for instance, Mark comes in with that same punch, I'm coming in here, I'm bringing my elbow in, I'm involving my pectoral muscles, it's a larger muscle group, so it's a stronger block. The problem is, look at the angles. If Mark comes in here and I do this, I'm really not off the line of the attack. In order to make this block work, I've got to do it this way, which is pretty convoluted and pretty unnatural and difficult to learn. Let us show you a better way to do a shield block. A more biomechanically efficient way to do this And by the fact that it's more biomechanically efficient, it also means that it works with different, it works over a broader range of different sizes of defender, you, and assailant. So say Mark comes in with that same punch. If I block this way, look what's going on here. I've got my elbow down here. My elbow is beneath my wrist. And what I'm thinking about here is not trying to come out this way, not trying to come up this way, but to go out like this. And the way I like to think about it is it's a rear-wheel drive car. The rear wheel, the traction is down here doing the pushing. It's pushing along this line, and my fingers are the front tires that are steering the car. So as it comes in, I'm pushing out like this. Now if you think about the muscles that this is involving the large pectoral muscles and the tricep muscles. And I'm forming a wedge between his force and my deflecting arm. And it just works a lot better and a lot easier. The thing to remember about this, I mean, nothing's free. The thing to remember about this is you have to drop your elbow in order to make this work. If you try to do it with your elbow out, and Mark has got some force here, I'm back to trying, or rather relying on my small shoulder muscle, and it's a losing proposition. The elbow's got to be in, and I'm driving my force this way, deflecting him away from me. And just so you can see a little more clearly what's going on, I'm going to turn my back to you. Now you can see where Mark's fist is headed. If I don't do anything, you can see where Mark's fist is going to head, right there towards my face. But when I'm blocking the way I should be, that's what happens. That's what it looks like. Notice two things. I'm using this wedge created by my rear-wheel drive elbow here, if you will, to wedge him away from me, putting this shield between me and his force. And I'm also doing something very important. I'm getting off the line of attack. Notice that when he punches, I'm not just standing here like this. Go ahead, Mark. And trying to make that work. I mean, I can make that work if I'm a lot stronger than he is, or he's a lot smaller than I am. Neither is the case here. If Mark was really trying to hurt me, I'm going to have to also move off the line of attack. Go ahead, Mark. This way to make this really work. And that's the case with any block. So two principles here. With a shield block, let's go on this way, I'm putting something between his force, his assault, his attack, and me. And what I'm putting between us is this wedge. And at the same time, I'm moving off his line of attack. And there are shield blocks, or you can use a shield block, that will work almost independent of where the attack is coming from. For instance, if I get an attack from here, you just saw me do that, and it works pretty well. The attack comes from over here. Actually, give me that arm, Mark. Yeah. I can do it here. Also, that one again. If I had to, I could go cross-body with the same shield block. Same idea, rear-wheel drive car, here's the steering wheel. Same idea. This isn't quite as good from a tactical point of view because I'm now starting to turn my back to him, and I've got to worry about that fist. But I could do it. If Mark is coming in to grab me from below, I can use a double shield block. Or if he was only trying to grab on one side, for instance, going for my scissors or something, I could use a shield block here. Same deal. Rear-wheel drive on the elbow, fingers are the steering wheel, and I'm making a wedge. If you try that, you'll see that you can hold back a fair amount of force with those biomechanics. The way to do that is get your buddy out here, have him extend his arm. So go ahead, extend that fist, Mark. I'm here, I get set up. Mark uses all of his strength to try to come in and hit and get me actually in the face. And all I got to do is think about traction here, steering wheel here, making a wedge. And you probably can't see it on the camera, but Mark is really trying. And it's not that hard for me to hold him back. I'm not using actually all that much energy because the biomechanics, the angles here work. Now these shield blocks are the preferred block when the attack is coming from the outside. When the attack is coming from the outside, if Mark gives me that same punch, for instance, it's easy for me to stick this up between me and this outside attack. If, however, the attack is more along a straight line, maybe he's trying to jab me, maybe he's trying to grab me with a choke or grab my lapels or something, but he's coming in more in a straight line way to me, then the pat block is often going to be an easier block to pull off. And the pat block works like this. Say Mark has a straight punch at me. I just have to be fast enough to intercept it in time and deflect it away. Now, his force is trying to go this way. and I'm pushing this way. I don't need very much force at all. And in fact, I don't need to get him very far away. If Mark throws a punch at me, I don't need to do that. I mean, that's nice if it happens. I've opened him up. I can counterattack if I need to. I can push him off if I need to get away. But if you do the same punch again, Mark, if I just do that, if I just get that fist just to the side of me, that's all I need to do. So I don't need much force here at all. The pat or deflecting block is a little trickier than the shield block, because the shield block is basically you just throw it up there, and if you do it right, it's probably going to catch a lot of the force coming in at you. The pat block or the deflecting block, on the other hand, requires some timing. As that attack is coming in, I need to be able to time it just right so I get it. If I'm late, I'm trying to deflect him away when he's hitting me. If I'm too early, I'm missing him altogether, or just bouncing off the front of him, and he's still coming in. So it requires some timing. But the fact is, with a straight attack, maybe it's a grab for the lapels or something, the pat block, the deflecting block, is your highest probability of success. You may be asking yourself, well, if he goes to attack me, why don't I just back up and get out of there like my instincts tell me to do? Well, there's a couple good reasons for that. One is, as I'm backing up, he's still attacking me, so he's still following me. I'm going backwards, he's going forwards, I'm on my heels, he's on his toes. He's going to win that one. Okay? So if he's intent on grabbing me, on attacking me, on hitting me, doing something to me, this isn't of any help. Sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with him. The other reason that this isn't the best instinct in the world is that there may not be any space back there. You may be in a confined space. You may be in a parking lot between cars. You may be in an ambulance. Who knows? But don't bet on there being available space for you to back up to back there. And certainly backing up into an unknown space is just risking tripping and hurting yourself. So yeah, if you're going to use a block, whether it's a shield block, go ahead, Mark, or it's a pat block, you're going to have to get used to the fact that you're going to have to deal with it right in here. And in fact, Mark, as fast as you can, put your hands up on my shoulders. Okay? Now when I see him move, I'm going to try to step back. I can't do it. Okay? There's no way I can move my body back that fast. He's moving this amount of mass. I'm trying to move all of my mass. He's got the advantage of initiating the action. He's got a good quarter second on me. All I have a hope of really doing, if he's trying to hurt me in some way, is, go ahead, Mark, is doing some kind of block. Now, you saw what I just did there. It didn't look as pretty as when I was demonstrating it to demonstrate the mechanics of the technique, but that's real life. That's okay. The technique doesn't have to look pretty when you do it in real life. It just has to be reasonably effective. If you find yourself in front of the patient for some reason, and that happens, and the patient decides he's going to kick you, there is a universal kick block that you see the UFC fighters do a lot. It doesn't work all the time. It's not foolproof. You're still going to take some of the impact, but it's your best bet. And it looks like this. If Mark goes to kick me from here, all I'm doing is bringing my knee up. And by doing that, I'm doing two things. One is I'm intercepting his force, so he's only halfway to his destination. So he's got less momentum, less energy here. And yeah, I'm taking that half momentum, half energy on my leg, but better than my groin. Or again, if we're standing up, if Mark is standing up and I'm in front of him and he goes to kick me, all I'm doing is bringing my leg up here. I may get an owie on my shin. I may get a big black and blue on my calf. That's okay. At least he's not kicking me in the gut, in the groin, or anywhere else that would really hurt. So once again, goes for the kick. All I'm doing is bringing my leg up, my knees straight up, and trying to shield myself from the force of that kick. Doesn't matter which leg it is. It's usually the front leg that you do this with. Now, obviously, a fight avoided is a fight won. And here again, taking a tip from the police side of the house might help you quite a bit. Police almost never, they try to almost never talk to someone directly like this, that is directly in front of them, directly in their power zone. Police always try to talk to somebody off to the side like this. If you watch a police officer interviewing a suspect, a witness, anybody, they're almost always off to the side, and their hands are almost always up here like this. Even if the hands aren't doing anything, they're just here in a relaxed way that doesn't look threatening at all. What the cop is really doing, however, is getting off the line of power of the person he's talking to and having his hands halfway to a blocking position is going to save him a lot of time, him or her a lot of time, if this person decides to assault him. So try to keep that in mind. It is hard to get that knee up there if he's trying to kick you. You really do have to be sharp and have the timing just right. If at this close distance, he's coming at you with his hands. So give yourself every advantage when you're talking to a patient, a bystander, anybody that's giving you information. Just try to talk like this. It'll put you in a more defensible position and a position that you're better able to defend yourself from should this person decide to assault you. Now remember, the whole reason you're defending yourself is not to win a fight. It's not to try to look good and beat this guy at a fight. It's to get to safety. It's to get the heck out of there. Once he assaults you, he or she assaults you, your duty to act is done. Your primary responsibility now is to get yourself to safety, get out of there, and protect your partner if you need to do that. So let's take those blocks up one more level and see how we can make the block work to get you to safety even better. For instance, if say Mark gives me an outside attack here and I block it with my shield block, well, I haven't really done much. All I've done is stop that attack. He's still set up and he can attack me some other way, with the other hand perhaps, and I'm going to have to block that. So let's add this to that block. Let's add forward pressure. Okay? When I same attack, same block, he attacks. This time, I'm going to add forward pressure to that block. That is, I'm going to bring my hand in here, drive him forward here, drive him forward here. I don't even have to hit him. I mean, I could hit him if I had to, but I don't even have to hit him. I can just lay my hand on here, whether it's this way, here, and drive him back. Now, I'm on my toes, he's on his heels, I'm off balancing him, and I've given myself the ability to scoot. I bought myself more time than if I just blocked and waited for him to hit me again. By using forward pressure, by driving him back, I gain myself a lot more time. You want to apply forward pressure no matter what kind of block you initially used. Let's say I used a pat block. Let's say Mark is going for my lapels, and I blocked him this way. The same principle applies. I don't just want to stand here, because he's not going to just stand there. He's going to go for his next move. I want to immediately apply forward pressure as much as I can. Also works if you're blocking a kick. For instance, if Mark goes to kick me, and I block him here, let me just set that up a little bit differently, Mark. Mark goes to block me, I block him here. I don't want to just come down and go, duh, now what are we going to do? Mark goes to kick me, I'm going to come down driving into him. Now, that's all well and good. You know, the shield type block for an outside attack, a more linear attack, using sort of a deflecting pat block. But how are you going to be able to do that in real time? I mean, you saw how fast Mark could leap at me and get his hands on me if he wanted to. And it's kind of hard in that short a time to figure out, oh, where's it coming from? What do I do? In fact, if someone suddenly comes at you like that with no warning, hopefully your first instinct is just going to be to cover up. To back up a little bit, to drop your center of gravity, and cover up your head. That's not a bad instinct. It may not seem like you're doing anything real useful here, except perhaps covering up, but you can turn that instinct into a more or less universal block that has some real virtue. And it's sometimes called the spear, and it looks like this. If we bring Mark in, no matter what kind of attack Mark launches at me, say he launches some kind of outside attack, if I just cover up like this, instead of covering up, keep that up there, Mark, like this, like I'm pulling in and I'm afraid, if I cover up with a little bit of extension, you can see my elbows are in, my wrists are ahead of my elbows, I'm going to deflect most of the force coming in almost any way that Mark wants to attack me. He comes in with a linear attack. If I do this, I may catch a little bit off the top of my head, I may catch some of the force on my arms, but I'm not going to catch it all. I'm going to deflect or move away most of it. It's called the spear sometimes because it looks like a spear. Most martial arts systems have something that looks like this. If I also add some forward momentum to it, I'm accomplishing my forward pressure at the same time as sort of doing a universal block. So I'm standing here interviewing Mark, getting history, maybe he's a witness, whatever, and all of a sudden he launches an attack at me because he doesn't want me here. Anything, Mark. Whoa! That kind of works. I can take advantage of that. From here, I can push him back. I can hit him if I need to. If I had the skills, I knew what I was doing, and he needed to really be hit, I could knee him. All kinds of things I could do. At a minimum, I can get him out of my face, buy myself a couple of seconds to do what my objective is under those circumstances, which is not win the fight, but to get out of there. So this universal kind of block, which keys off of your natural defensive instinct, has a lot in common with the shield block that we talked about before. You aren't trying to throw your arms up using your small shoulder muscles. You're putting your arms in front of you like this. And unlike the shield block, where I'm sort of trying to intercept that force coming in, I'm just putting them up in front of me. But as I said before, my wrist is ahead of my elbows. My elbows are pulled into the center here like this, not like this, because if they're out like this, then my whole chest is open and I can be attacked. I'm shielding myself like this with this spear-type motion. And the way I'm pushing forward is the way we talked about the shield block. Rear-wheel drive car, steering wheel here. So what I'm doing is when Mark gives me any kind of force or attack here, I'm meeting it with this kind of motion here. It's just like, boom, straight into him. If my hands, my fingers happen to touch his face or whatever, well, that's too bad. He initiated the attack. That's not an unreasonable amount of force if I'm trying to prevent myself from being whacked in the head. If it's appropriate at the time, you're always in a better position to defend yourself if you're initially touching, making contact with whoever it is that you're worried about, be it the patient, a bystander, a witness, whatever. I could be down here, and it's better, rather than saying, sir, where does it hurt, how did this start, etc., what medications you on, I could be down here, just touching him empathetically. This puts me in a much better position to defend myself. Whether he's seated or whether he's standing, it doesn't matter. If he goes to launch an attack, say with this hand, go ahead, Mark, I can feel it right away. Even if he goes to launch an attack with his left hand, I can feel the tension, and I can feel his body moving, and I can feel it way before I can see it. And let us prove that to you now. This is something that you can do with a buddy. The way you set it up is like this. You get yourself into a symmetric position so that you can each punch each other. Go ahead, punch. You can each have a line to punch each other if you wanted to. So you're in this symmetric mirror type image. Now the idea here is I'm going to try to punch Mark. He's going to try to block me. Start it out this way though. Don't have your arms touch. There's no physical contact between you. So we're standing like this. Our arms aren't touching. Mark knows I'm going to hit him. You ready, Mark? I'm going to hit you. Don't give it to me. Try to block it. Ready? One more time. If I stay focused, if I don't lose my concentration, I can do that all day long, and Mark can't block me. It's not because I'm particularly fast. It just has to do with the physiology of the situation. He has to see my attack coming and tell his arm to start moving. On the other hand, if we are in physical contact, right now our arms are touching, the situation is reversed. He can react to feeling my attack or feeling my movement much faster than he can react by seeing it. And we'll show you like this. We're touching, our arms are touching, and I'm not even going to tell Mark when I'm going to hit him. He's just going to block me or move my arm out of the way when I try to hit him. Okay? I'm actually trying to hit him here. If Mark stays focused, he can block me all day long. Not quite sure of the physiology of what's involved, but if you are in contact with someone that you have any doubt about, you will be able to react to their assault, if they do assault you, much faster than if you have to react visually and try to defend yourself. one of the really worrisome things these days with all this UFC training that the kids are getting these days is the takedown. If someone's trying to take you to the ground, that's a pretty dangerous situation because once you're on the ground, it's really hard to defend yourself. And if they're trying to take you to the ground, it's because they're comfortable on the ground and they can do a lot of damage to you. So if someone's trying to take you down, trying to put you on the ground, I would regard that as a very serious situation that justifies a pretty high level of force. Now, it's hard to defend against someone that's really skilled at the takedown, and hopefully you aren't going to run into some kind of world-class fighter. The basic defense, it doesn't work all the time, nothing works all the time, but the basic defense, the basic thing you want to try is, for instance, if Mark is coming in to try to take me down, it's called the sprawl. You just move yourself back, put your hands out here, and try to get him down, get his head down a little farther than he wanted to be. Mark was probably trying to come in either for my knees with his head up or for my waist. My objective is, as he comes in, go ahead either way, Mark, is just to try to take control of his height and prevent him from taking me down. Now, if I miss, if he's got a lot of momentum, I don't get myself braced back very far, and he keeps coming forward, my objective then is to try to deflect him away from me, drive him down to the ground. And I don't really care at this point if his head bounces off the concrete, because, as I said, if he's trying to take me down to the ground, I have to assume it's because he's comfortable there and he knows that that's where he can do a lot of damage to me. Another thing to say about being on the ground or being pushed to the ground in this basics program is that sometimes you just wind up there through no fault of your own. I mean, you might have tripped, you might have been pushed, you might have fallen. As part of this fight you're in, you might have wound up here on your back. It's not a good place to be. You want to get up and out of here just as soon as you can. But if he's pressing the attack, that can be pretty difficult. And here's a way to deal with it. If I'm here on my back and he's just standing there, maybe trying to figure out what to do or trying to figure out how serious he is about this, well, I'm not going to do a whole lot. I'm going to watch him closely, I'm going to be prepared to defend myself, and if possible, if he's giving me the opportunity, the time, the space, I may try to get up and leave if I can do that. If I can't do that, if it's sort of this momentary standoff, I'm not going to expend energy trying to do anything to him from here until I know he's definitely pressing the attack on me. Now, what a lot of people will try to do sometimes, because they've probably seen it in the movies or whatever, is they'll flip over on a side like this and try to work from one of their sides to counter an assault. Say Mark's trying to come in at me. This isn't very effective unless you're really seriously well trained in it, because what's happening here is, although Mark might have a hard time blocking this force, it's very easy for him to push my leg down and for him to launch an assault on me, hitting me in the head, putting my head into the concrete, or whatever. There is a better way. If he's pressing the attack and I need to defend myself, a better tactic is to stay on your back and ward him off this way. Now, something very important here. I'm not kicking straight like this. That's not terribly effective, and Mark won't have too much trouble smothering my feet and coming in at me. What makes this effective is that it's a bicycling motion like this. Go ahead. Faster, Mark. Faster. Now you see, as Mark pivots around me, trying to get a better vantage point, the fact that I'm on my back doesn't inhibit me from keeping up with him. Being on the small of my back, I can pivot as fast as he can move, because I don't have the big radius he has. And if you try this for yourself, you can see it's very easy to keep up with someone trying to circle you and get to the side of your feet. This is just one of those things you're going to have to try for yourself to really see. When someone is bicycling their feet at you like this, very hard, it's just not something you're going to want to come through. If I do it for the camera now, maybe you can see it, but you can really see it better if you try it with a friend. Being in a fight, defending yourself, is exhausting to begin with. This bicycle technique is particularly exhausting. You expend a lot of energy really fast, and you really can't keep it up for too long. So just because you're on the ground and your assailant is up there, the guy that put you on the ground, doesn't necessarily mean you want to be doing this the whole time. I mean, you could just be doing that for no reason. You might want to just stand there and try to talk him out of it. Hey, we can work this out, whatever. You may be looking for an opportunity to get up and leave, but conserve your energy until the point where you really need it, when he starts to aggress. If he starts coming at me, that's the point I'm going to start to bicycle and try to catch him with one of those strong kicks. We haven't talked a lot about strikes in this program because, as we said, your object isn't to win a fight with this guy. It's to get yourself to safety, just to get out of the area. Nonetheless, sometimes just blocking, deflecting, even with forward pressure, your assailant's attack may not be enough. Now, this isn't a full-blown defensive tactics or full-blown fighting program. It's a defensive program. What we're going to show you here are 2 strikes that you can add in where you feel you need them and where you feel they're justified. We're going to show you 2 techniques that are pretty easy to pick up and learn. The hand technique we're going to show you is the palm heel strike. Now you notice that we're striking with the palm of your heel, or with the heel of your palm rather, and not your fist, which means that if you haven't practiced this a fair amount, you need to. I mean, any skill is something you need to practice. But if you aren't familiar with this, if you don't have this ingrained into your so-called muscle memory, you're going to revert to what you've seen on TV and the movies, which is people wailing each other with fists. And you don't really want to be hitting people, particularly in the facial area, with your fist, with your closed fist, because even professional boxers have broken knuckles and suffered some pretty good injuries by trying to do that. I mean, professional boxers hit each other with gloves on. On the street, palm heel is much safer and is a much more versatile blow. The palm heel strike is a lot like the shield block that we showed you earlier, in that the power comes from the elbow pushing your palm heel into your assailant. An untrained person, if they're trying to hit something, you tend to see them doing this, and their elbows are way out, and one is they have no power, but 2, they're completely exposed, and it's just the wrong way to do it. The right way, if you're going to hit somebody, is to have your elbows dropped in like this, and now you can use the traction of the rear wheel drive of your elbow, driving your palm heel into your assailant. Notice the other thing I'm doing when I do that is I'm involving the hips. By involving the hips, I'm inherently involving my legs, and I'm getting my whole body weight behind this blow, rather than just the small amount of weight that in my arms if I don't use my hips. The reason the palm heel is more versatile than the closed fist, and therefore more desirable in most cases, is because you can modulate the amount of power behind it. Let's say Mark's throwing a punch at me and I've caught him here. Let's say, and here we are. And now I'm going to do something. Now the situation is such that I need to strike him in order to get away. Well, if I want to, I can use my palm heel. I can come in, make contact, and just push him, in which case it becomes a strong shove. Or I can use my palm heel here, don't move, Mark, and I can really hit him. So the fact that I'm not striking with something hard, that I'm striking with something relatively soft, allows me to gauge the amount of power I use at any point when I need to. In practice, it might look something like this. Here I am, either working on Mark or talking to him, ideally with my hands on him off to the side, and things go south. He wants me out of there, whatever. Boom, he gets up and he starts to go after me. Well, I block him, and then I strike him if I need to, giving me enough time, hopefully, to leave the area. The leg technique we'd like to show you is the rising knee. This looks a lot like the universal kick block that we saw before, only this time your knee is coming up, you're not extending it, you're not trying to go way out there, it's just right in here, right up here, and you're trying to catch your assailant somewhere in his lower body. Doesn't really matter whether you catch him on the inner leg, the front of the leg, if he's turned around a little bit on the outer leg, or even in the groin, or even in the midsection. rising knee coming up like that is unlikely to cause serious injury, but it should definitely get somebody's attention, should definitely serve its purpose of buying you a second or two to get out of there. You might want to use a rising knee kick if you're tied up here. Say he started his assault and we get tied up here, and it's the momentum and the flow and the position of my hands just isn't such that I have a very convenient strike with my palm heel. Well, that might be the time to bring my knee up and try to catch something in the midsection. It could be just because it's the right thing to do at that time. I mean, I might have this open, this palm heel to the head, and just think that that's the more effective thing to do. That's a more appropriate thing to do from a tactical point of view at that point. That's what's going to buy me the couple of seconds I need to get out of here. Realize that this rising knee is a more skilled technique than the palm heel. It's a more skilled technique because you're coming onto one leg, and you need to be able to maintain your balance throughout this whole cycle. If Mark and I are tied up here and he's got the momentum, okay, and I raise my knee and I'm off balance, he's going to push me back, he's going to gain the advantage in that fight, and I'm going to be in big trouble. So it takes some skill, it takes some experience, it takes some practice to understand when we're tied up here, when that moment of opportunity is for me to fire that knee if I need to. And this is only something you can do by practicing a little bit with your buddies. I mean, you can just sort of tie yourself up here. You can just sort of move around without even trying to strike each other and find out how your momentum and the flow and the body weight moving back and forth opens and closes windows of opportunity for you to bring that knee up without being knocked over. Okay. So where do you go from here? We've given you some real basics in this program, but recognize that if the bad thing happens to you, if you get assaulted, you're going to be in a fight. If you want to go farther than this, if you want to learn more than this, you really need to study fighting, which means you need to get to some kind of fighting school, be it a martial arts school or a UFC type school. Even good old Western boxing will teach you a lot. We realize that fighting isn't part of your job description. It's not something you're going to do a lot in your career, but remember the stats we cited earlier, that most EMTs are assaulted at least once, if not multiple times, during their career. So even though it's not in your job description, it may be something you're called upon to do just to save yourself. What we showed you in this practical techniques section of this program are things you can certainly practice with a willing buddy. You just need to go slow and easy so you don't hurt yourself. And you're going to have to naturally modulate your force when you're working with your buddy so you don't hurt each other. But that's a good thing, because in the real world, if you're assaulted, you're going to have to modulate your force too, depending on the situation, depending on the level of force that's justified, as we described in part 1 of this program. So you may sometimes be justified in striking very hard with a palm heel or just pushing with a palm heel, as we described. You may sometimes be justified in just raising your knee enough to push somebody off, or you may sometimes be justified in raising your knee enough to give them a good, sharp amount of pain, because that's appropriate under the situation. But do have fun, get together with one or more of your buddies, and practice this stuff, because it will help you if the bad thing ever happens to you on the job.